Hi, it's Uncle Larry. I suppose you could call this part two of our discussion about the importance of standing up for yourself and for your values. If you didn't see part one, scroll down my Facebook page to find that and watch it first. For YouTube viewers, go to the Uncle Larry playlist on the B-Side Apostles page. It's there. I ended the last comment by saying, if your values are worth defending, then it's time to prepare to defend them. For those of you who aren't great at verbalizing your convictions, this will be more challenging, I know. So I put together a couple of guidelines for what they're worth as to what to expect when someone confronts you, misrepresents your values, or tries to humiliate you by dismissing your values altogether. This could happen at any time. It could happen during an unexpected face-to-face encounter, in a debate, in a classroom, at a protest, or on social media. Standing up to intellectual bullies can be just as stressful as other kinds of bullying, and the impulse to run away can be overwhelming. But in our last comment, we already established if your values are worth defending, then avoiding conflict won't do. Stand up for yourself. Don't let them win by default. Let's get started. One of the first things to try to detect is whether your opponent is actually listening to you or is using your speaking time just to calculate a response. Look at them carefully to see if they're paying attention. If your adversary is a good listener, well, you might just end up having a good faith debate. That's not very stressful. It's actually healthy for both of you. As the saying goes, he who wrestles with us makes us stronger. It kind of builds intellectual muscle. So, if your adversary is not a good listener but seems intent only on winning the encounter, it's a sign of insecurity and it may not go as well. And they probably haven't focused much on what you actually believe. Instead, they'll use argumentative strategies in an attempt to gain the upper hand. I'm just going to identify two possible strategies and a counter strategy you can use. The first strategy your opponent might try on you is what is called the straw man argument. Straw man arguments create a distorted version of your position, making it easier to attack or dismiss, but they often sidestep the genuine concerns in your original position. It involves misrepresenting or distorting your position by using simplified versions of your viewpoint. If that seems kind of dense, here's a few examples to illustrate how a straw man argument might work. You might say something like this: I think we should prioritize fiscal responsibility and reduce government spending to boost the economy. The straw man might respond, aha, you just want to cut social programs, all of them, and leave the vulnerable without any supports at all just for the benefit of the wealthy. Something you never actually said. How about another example? You might say something like, I think we should explore alternative energy sources to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. The straw man response might be, so, you want us to abandon all traditional energy sources immediately, even if it means economic collapse? Again, it's something you never actually said. They're putting words in your mouth. Straw manning is like changing the subject away from your primary argument in order to misrepresent it. The technique is used all the time. Another strategy used by an opponent is something easier to deal with, the ad hominem response. This usually happens when an opponent is particularly insecure, their argument is weak, and they know it deep down. It's often the path of last resort for them. So what is it? An ad hominem argument consists of replying to an argument by attacking or appealing to the person making the argument, rather than by addressing the substance of the argument. An ad hominem argument involves attacking something about your nature or about your character or your personality instead of the argument itself, making it personal like an insult. It's easier to identify and dismiss, so let's not dwell a lot on the ad hominem part. Let's move to a counter strategy you can use. One of the beneficial things you can do in defending your values is to have a pretty clear idea of your opponent's perspective. It's the opposite of the straw man approach and is instead called steel manning your argument. So you've got straw manning and steel manning. What is steel manning? Well, while a straw man argument involves misrepresenting or exaggerating one aspect of an opponent's position to make it easier to attack, steel manning does the opposite. It seeks to identify the strongest aspects of an opposing viewpoint and to complement the opponent on things that you both agree upon. You don't just present your counter objections straight up. No, you don't do that. You don't just say, oh, you're wrong, and here's why you're wrong, and here's the right answer. Instead, your approach is different. You demonstrate first you understand the other person's position. You find areas of commonality, if there are any. You show that you're actually listening to what they have to say, not just calculating a response in your head. This approach allows the other person to save face and not have to backtrack their thinking, which nobody likes to do. At no point is anyone proven wrong because it's not about winning. They just arrive at your verdict by thinking things through. It's a small possibility. There's a window there that's pretty small, but they just might go through it. Now, this approach has a very disarming effect. Remember, people who are quite verbal and prone to argumentation are usually accustomed to just having their way. The idea of being challenged doesn't even occur to many of them. It's quite shocking. You've already got them on the back foot. And then if you're polite and respectful on top of it, they may not know what to do. A lot of insecure bullies will just fall apart. Steel manning is very difficult, but this technique can come in handy. Now, in conclusion, I don't know if this has been helpful or not. There's lots of other sources you can read on making good arguments. I just want you to remember this. Your values are worth defending. Stand up for yourself. If our democracy is to survive, we need viewpoint diversity, and that means your viewpoint too.